Welcome kids to Storytime.
What is Hajj? Hajj is the fifth pillar of Islam. Muslims make this journey to Mecca once in their lifetimes. They follow the footsteps of Prophet Muhammad, Abraham, and Ismail, peace be upon all of them. Today's story is Letters from Hajj. 9-year-old Fatima's parents are leaving for Hajj to Saudi Arabia. Fatima, your mom and I are leaving for Hajj tomorrow, says Daddy. Hajj? What's that, Daddy? Fatima asked. Hajj is a duty on all adult Muslims who are able to go to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, once in their lifetime. We go to Hajj to seek forgiveness from God, and we participate in rituals that bring us closer to Him. How long would you be gone for? Asked Fatima. We will be back in 10 days. Grandma and Grandpa are coming to stay with you. I'm curious, what are you going to do there at Hajj? Fatima asked. Well, we knew you were going to be curious, Mom replied. While we are gone, you will receive a letter from us daily to describe the rituals the pilgrims perform during Hajj. Oh, I will be waiting, Mommy, Fatima said in excitement. That must be Grandma and Grandpa at the door. Mommy and Daddy left all the letters with the grandparents, and then they left for Hajj. Grandma gave the first letter to Fatima. The first letter said, Dear Fatima, today we will be traveling from our home to Saudi Arabia. The first thing we will have to do is change into ihram. Ihram are simple garments, 2 unstitched cloths for men or loose-fitting clothing for women. This makes us all look the same. No one can tell by looking at us if we are wealthy or poor, or someone is an average person or a powerful ruler. We all stand before God the same. After that, we will go to the Kaaba. It's the cube structure built by Abraham and his son Ismail. The Kaaba is God's house on earth. We do tawaf, which is walking around it 7 times. Fatima asked her grandma, Do we worship the Kaaba, Grandma? Grandma said, No, dear. Muslims don't worship the Kaaba. We worship only God. The Kaaba is a special place because it represents the direction Muslims face during their daily prayers to God. And the act of circling it reminds the pilgrims that God should be at the center of our lives. The next day, Fatima eagerly waited for the second letter to arrive. The second letter says, Dear Fatima, another important part of Hajj is performing Sa'i, which is walking between 2 hills of Safa and Marwa. Pilgrims emulate how Hagar ran between the 2 hills in search of water for her son Ishmael. This running between the hills reminds pilgrims that we always have to strive when faced with hardship and desperation, and to never give up and remain optimistic that God's help is near. And miraculously, water gushed out of the barren desert sand where baby Ismail was sitting. This water is called Zamzam and is still flowing today. Next day, she received her third letter. It said, Dear Fatima, next the pilgrims go to a city of tents called Mina and get ready for their big day at the Mount of Mercy in Arafat. The day of Arafat is considered one of the most important days, not just for Hajj, but of the Islamic calendar. Mount Mercy at Arafat was the scene of Prophet Muhammad's final sermon, peace be upon him. Pilgrims spend a day here in prayer seeking forgiveness. This day is a compelling reminder for all Muslims of their own standing before God, answering for their deeds. Grandma, can we do anything on this important day, even though we are not at Hajj? Fatima asked. Yes, my sweetie, Muslims elsewhere in the world choose to fast on this day. The next day, Fatima received her next letter. It said, Dear Fatima, after sunset, it's time to move again, this time to Muzdalfa, where we spend a night under the stars. Many pilgrims begin collecting pebbles here for tomorrow's rites, departing to Mina again just before sunrise. And in Mina, remember the city of tents? The pilgrims pelt stones at different pillars. It's a ritual called Rami. This ritual commemorates the actions of Abraham when the devil attempted to dissuade him from fulfilling the instructions of God. It reminds the pilgrims to be conscious of internal and external temptations in the world, and that we have to actively strive to push those temptations away to earn the pleasure of God. Fatima received the fifth letter on the next day. It said, "Dear Fatima, another important ritual for Hajj is sacrificing an animal. This sacrifice commemorates the story of Prophet Abraham and his willingness to follow God's commandment to sacrifice his son. God replaced his son with a ram to be slaughtered instead. The sacrifice is not only an act of obedience to God, but one of generosity because the meat of the animal is distributed to the poor and needy. The ritual is symbolic because pilgrims are reminded that we should be ready to part with whatever our hearts may hold dear when we have the opportunity to do what is right for the sake of God or helping others." On this day, all the pilgrims also trim or cut their hair. You see, Fatima, the different rituals of Hajj remind pilgrims the purpose of existence, to renew their relationship with the Creator and actively make efforts to stay connected with one another and God. Grandma, I'm going to write a letter to Mommy and Daddy to let them know how I spent Eid here while they were at Hajj. That's a great idea, sweetie, Grandma replied back. "Dear Mommy and Daddy, this is how I spent Eid while you were away at Hajj. First, I woke up and I got dressed in my Eid clothes, and then we went to the mosque with Grandma and Grandpa. After that, we went to my friend's house and wished her a happy Eid, and we came back home and we had a big meal. And I got lots of presents and candy. Love, Fatima." Mommy and Daddy were coming back today, and Fatima couldn't wait to see them. She went to the airport with her grandparents to pick them up with flowers and balloons. She ran to her parents and gave them a big hug. "We missed you so much, Fatima," her parents said. "I missed you too," replied Fatima. Thank you for joining us today to learn about Hajj and Eid al-Adha.